Godly friends give wise counsel and boldly offer loving correction when necessary. Proverbs 27:6, wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. You know, I like this verse, how it says wounds from a friend can be trusted, because sometimes the things they tell you are not exactly what you want to hear. Has anyone ever had that happen? Honestly, I have had that happen. I know you thought I was perfect, and I never would need any correction, but apparently that's not true. There was a time, probably 6 or 7 years ago, 8 years ago, where a godly girlfriend, actually someone who helped me start Squadron of Sisters, came to me and said, I just need to tell you, Debbie, that you have a victim mentality. I'm like, how dare she say that? I cannot believe this woman. And then, I pondered it, and I actually finally, after I got, my feathers were a little ruffled, but I pondered it. It's like, Lord, do I have a victim mentality? And it's like, the Lord said, yes. But it wasn't even a pause. It's just like, yes. I'm like, what? But I had been carrying a lot of baggage from my childhood and things that had happened to me in childhood, and then with an abusive dating relationship when I was in high school, and all this stuff. I just carried it forward, and I just had like this sign on my back, I'm a victim, just kick me now, and I didn't realize that until she pointed it out to me, something I couldn't see myself. Godly girlfriends do that for you. When you're on the wrong track, they say, lovingly, have you thought about this, that you might have a victim mentality, or whatever. Number 3, godly friends give objective advice when you are perhaps too close or emotional to see a situation clearly. Boy, howdy, that's been the case for me many times. Proverbs 19:20, listen to advice and accept instruction that you may gain wisdom in the future. Sometimes our emotional entanglement in an issue, our emotions are just like too big for us to see what God is actually doing in the midst of a painful situation. We just see the pain, and we don't see what God is doing. And a godly girlfriend will come along and say, oh, I know, this is it looks like a deep, dark valley, but I see a ray of light over here. Did you notice this? And we're like, no, I'm busy looking at the valley. Don't bother me right now. And the girlfriend's like, do you see this flicker of light over here? I don't want to look at that stinking light. I'm busy looking at this valley. I'm having a pity party. I'm really enjoying it. Don't I look happy? Right? But, it's like a godly girlfriend is there to say, you know what? I can see something going on over here. And our emotions are sometimes so big in the way that we can't even see that big thing in the deep, dark valley. Also, sometimes a godly friend can help us see if we're enabling in a relationship. Not that any of us have ever done anything like that, but I hear that there are women that are enablers. Maybe kind of codependent, maybe enabling a teenage child or even an adult child or even a 35-year-old child to stay irresponsible and not even work for a living, and they just live in your basement playing video games all day. You're like, just can't find the right job. I guess, someday he will. Like, okay, that could be a sign that you're enabling. But, a godly girlfriend can come along and point something like that out to you, right? There are even more serious things where, again, you just get you're so close to a situation that you cannot see it clearly. And a classic one is where abuse happens in a marriage, and it happens so slowly. It creeps into a marriage so slowly. You'd think that any woman would just obviously know that she's in an abusive relationship, but it can happen so slowly and so subtly that she can be way into this abusive relationship before she even realizes it. But a godly girlfriend comes alongside and says, no, it's not normal for a husband to do that. It's not right for a husband to throw you up against a wall and scream obscenities at you. That is not normal. And it's like, you just need a godly girlfriend to point that out. Godly friends intercede for us and join with us to pray powerfully. Ooh, we like that at Squadron of Sisters. We're all over that one, right? Matthew 18. Again, truly I tell you that if 2 of you on earth agree about anything they ask for, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them. This is where there is tremendous power when we come together in prayer, in agreement. Intercessory prayer just moves mountains. But here's what I've learned, sadly, is that, it takes time. It usually doesn't happen, bam, overnight. Sometimes it does, but sometimes you have to pray for years and years. But a godly girlfriend partners with you, several godly girlfriends partner with you, and you keep praying, and you keep praying, and you keep praying. I think of one lady who prayed for 15 years for her husband to accept Christ, and 15 years later he did. But it took her 15 years. And she had other godly girlfriends praying with her, and she didn't give up, she persevered. So don't give up, don't get weary in praying, but God does answer those prayers that we lift together in agreement with other believers. And this one came to me this morning in prayer when I was asking God for final thoughts on this little lesson. And he gave me this vision of the game Red Rover. Do you remember this game? You held hands and they try to bust through the line, right? And I'm like, what's that about, Lord? And I felt like he was showing me that when we link arms, and some of you that have been here before know that we always have a point in our meeting where we gather in a circle and link arms together. When we link arms together in fellowship, we build a strong barrier that prevents the enemy from breaking through in his attack on us. Amen. Praise God, right? It's like that was the visual that God gave me, that when we link arms, we form this barrier. The enemy's after each one of you to take you out, to take out your marriage, to destroy your family. He is bent to take you out. But when we link arms, it's like we're forming a barrier. And when you link arms, next slide, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. That's what he's up to, but we are linking arms, ladies. The enemy is especially persistent in trying to get you isolated from fellow believers because he knows that leads to problems for you. Proverbs 18:1, whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. When we're out of fellowship, we just start drifting away from God's love, from God's comfort, from God's guidance, from God's power. We just start drifting away from all of the goodness that is God, right? What is Satan's most effective way to get you isolated? What is his most effective way to get you isolated and out of fellowship? Is it that you're working lots of hours all of a sudden? Or you have lots of kids' activities. You just have so many activities for your kids that you can't possibly stay in fellowship with other women. Or you're just exhausted. Or you have all these recreational things that are just calling to you. Or you just have to go to the gym instead of coming to a fellowship of women. None of these things are bad. Kids' activities are good. Going to the gym is good. Having recreational pursuits are good. All these things are good. But are they squeezing out your time for fellowship? Because that's important. That is so important. Can you really afford to become isolated?